Great, welcome everyone. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes. Just wait for everyone to join. All the numbers are going up. 30 people so far. $40. I'm going to give it 30 more seconds and then I will get into it. I feel like I should do a countdown. 10, 9, 8. Right, I'm going to go. So welcome everyone. This is actually our fourth webinar session of 2025 in our QR webinar series. And today we're going to be talking about a slightly different use case. We'll be exploring how GS1 powered QR codes can unlock new levels of traceability, circularity, and sustainability. We are joined by a very exciting panel who are going to talk us through a real life example, which I'm very excited to hear about. And that's really going to bring this topic to life with practical insights. So this webinar is slightly different. So we are going to be doing it as a panel discussion. So I just wanted to let everyone know if they changed in their top right, their view to gallery mode, when we get to the panel discussion, you'll see the three of us on screen together rather than it kind of like switching between the two, because it's always nicer to see everyone together. So let me introduce our panel. So today you have myself, Roshni. I am an engagement manager at GS1 UK, and I'll be hosting the panel today. And I am joined by Andrew Beamish, who is a fabulous winemaker and owner of Mallard Point. And then we've also got Rosa on the call, who is a project manager at QR2/Polytag, both of which are valued GS1 UK approved partners. So before we get into it, I just wanted to reiterate GS1's competition law, just so you're aware. There may be certain kind of topics that we can't discuss on this webinar. So GS1 operates under the GS1 competition law caution. Strict compliance with competition law is always and has been the policy of GS1. And what that means is there will be no discussion of prices, allocation of customers or products, boycotts, refusals to deal, or market share. If we do get into any of those conversations, we'll just have to take a pause and take that offline. So before we start and hear from Andrew and Rosa, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the transition to QR codes powered by GS1, why it's happening, and how those QR codes actually work. So the barcode has been around for over 50 years. And in that time, it really hasn't changed. We've had things like the internet being invented, and that barcode has remained the same, which is a testament to what it does. But that barcode only holds one piece of information, which is the GTIN, the Global Trade Identification Number. And about 5 years ago, GS1 globally got together with its members to talk about the future of this barcode. And one thing that they all aligned on was the need for that code to hold more data. So alongside that need to hold more data, there were also 4 key drivers that we've identified. So things like consumer engagement, sustainability, regulations, and digitalization. All of these things combined kind of made the QR codes become the next generation of the barcode. And that's really where it was born. So you might have heard the term Sunrise 2027, Sunset 2027, or more recently, it's called Ambition 2027. And I just wanted to reiterate what we mean by that. So GS1 are transitioning from the traditional barcode that you see on screen today to QR codes powered by GS1. And we believe by the end of 2027, the majority of POS systems will be able to scan these QR codes powered by GS1 alongside the traditional barcode. So the barcode's not going to vanish. It's just that we're going to have this additional barcode that can hold more data that can also be scanned at POS. And a lot of people ask me, but why now? Why are we doing it now? Why is now the right time? Well, essentially the technology is ready. You'll have noticed, since COVID, more and more people are starting to scan QR codes. Consumers understand what they do. And also a lot of the till systems have the software in place to read these two-dimensional codes. So then if we go on to the next slide, what's the difference? What's the difference between the normal barcode and the QR code powered by GS1? Well, the normal barcode only holds one piece of information, that GTIN. The global trade item number can hold up to 25 characters and it goes beep at the till. It's quite limiting. Whereas the QR code powered by GS1 can hold far much more data, so over 4,000 characters. It can link to multiple pieces of online information. It can be dynamically updated, so even after it's been printed, if you want to change where it directs to, you can. It can hold offline information, including things like the GTIN, obviously, the batch, the expiry date, and because of that, it also goes beep at the till. So essentially doing everything the barcode can do, but a lot more. And it actually uses something called the GS1 Digital Link Standard, and that's the way that data is structured behind the barcode. And that really unlocks a whole new world of possibilities. So that's enough from me. Now, let's get into finding out about a real world example. So I'm going to welcome Andrew from Mallard Point. And Andrew, it would be great to hear a little bit more about yourself, what you do, and also about Mallard Point and the brand and yeah, what you guys do.
Thank you. So we're a vineyard winery and distillery based up in Rutland, England's smallest county. First commercial vineyard to plant and to grow grapes to make wine. We also have a distillery, so we're quite unique in that respect, where we reuse, which is our ethos, as you'll see, our grape mark after pressing for wine to make a range of spirits as well. We planted in 2019, so we're not centuries old in that respect, so fairly new, but we were very unblinkered when we came as not sort of a generational business, if you like, that was sort of following on. And so we were sort of open-eyed to all aspects, what we planted, what we wanted to make, and also really what we wanted to package in as well. We're the UK's first producer to bottle UK wine, or English wine, sorry, I should say, in aluminium bottles. It's a unique bottle that Mallard Point created. It's not available anywhere else, and we created it. We're not a packaging company, which is quite strange, but we, as I said, our DNA is all about reuse, and we were quite shocked to see that there was nothing in alcohol, because we're wines and spirits, to bring a bottle back. Plenty of things for recycling, and lots of pieces of work were going on about lightweighting bottles and doing bits and pieces as we were starting our journey into packaging our products. But nothing really was there for reuse. A little bit on B2B, but nothing really on B2C, business to consumer, which is where we were starting. So spent 4 years basically as we waited for our first grapes to be available, sort of pioneering, I suppose, this kind of bit in alcohol, this packaging, and yeah, we had to call on the likes of other industry professionals like GS1 and Polytag, QR Squared to assist us to go on to the next steps.
Amazing. So one of my first questions was going to be around why you decided to focus on that specific use case, so around the circularity traceability. But it sounds like what you're saying is that there was just a big gap in the market. Is that right? Like no one was doing it really?
think you can look back at things across time, and I can't say hand up. I'm the first person to bottle in aluminium. There have been other people who have bottled in aluminium. Were they reusable? No. Are there existing people doing it? Others have launched in aluminium since ourselves. Again, on the recycling side of things, people have tried bottle reuse. We used to reuse bottles of glass, for example, and on the continent that still very much exists. So you can look back. I think timing is one thing, and when we were doing our start of our piece of work, as I say, a massive piece of work was going on in wine, especially not so much spirits, but it was about lightweighting glass bottles, for example. That was the answer that people wanted to do, and obviously most alcohol is bottled in glass. So we were very much an alternative packaging, and we looked at this really because um, we wanted to reuse. We wanted to use existing stuff rather than keep making things.
Amazing. So once you decided on, obviously reuse was the key thing that you wanted to unlock, what were the initial steps that you took to then decide who you were going to work with, what you needed to kind of figure out to make it happen?
So again, it was a huge jigsaw puzzle, basically. We set ourselves two pillars. One, as we just said, the bottle had to be reusable, and the second pillar was that everything had to be pre-existing. We don't have millions and millions of pounds behind us, and so and we didn't want to be manufacturing things for manufacturing sake. Um, so we had to look at things that were pre-existing, and juggle those, or fit those together to work. So, here's our bottle. If anyone hasn't seen it in the flesh, and our bottle, we haven't invented the aluminium style bottle. We haven't invented the swing top, and we haven't invented the return style packaging. These are all things that are in our lives and have been with probably the first people to put that whole jigsaw puzzle together. So. That worked really well in the insight at the beginning, which is where we were always going to be dealing with consumers and dealing direct. But as our business was going to grow, we needed to be in shops, and we needed, whether that's small independents or farm shops, or looking into bigger retail. And for us to return our bottle, we needed to look at ways that meant that the customer wasn't coming back to us. And the biggest sort of closing door we got at the beginning was, love your concept, everything's brilliant, but you get the customer back after we've sold your product. And I said, well, take our bottles into store, have a returns system in store, like on the continent and like things used to be. But no one was interested. We understand space is a premium, etc. And that's where we needed to look for not just advice at the beginning, but look for the solution. That was really key for us getting anywhere into retail on there. And yeah, we were very lucky to find the partners we have done, which has enabled us to be able to do what we can do now.
Amazing. It's definitely something that we see across all the different use cases. It's not just one solution, it's different people working together to unlock the full benefits. So that's great. And then obviously QR Squared by Polytag was one of the partners that was part of that ecosystem. So actually, Andrew, it'd be good to know, like, what part did they play within that?
So yes, we so beforehand in our returns packaging, we put a little card, like a credit card size card, which our customers fill manually out with their name and email address on. And when the bottle got returned in the box to us, we would then send an email out with their voucher code, their discount, their incentive for having sent the bottle back, the thank you, if you like, to do that. Manually, that was obviously a bit laborious. It's time, but as I said before, and the key message really was that we were becoming the hub, which was fine for us, but obviously for our ambition to go further, that wasn't working. So the QR code was the actual driver. By putting that onto our bottle meant that a customer could scan that. Like, again, it's buying behavior, it's part of consumer behavior. Sorry, now, and that scan of that QR code meant that we could have an individual homepage for every product we had. And the customer would do the, if you like, the manual filling actually online on that, so there wasn't a card to forget or not put in, and that meant there was obviously some data that was then captured at that point, and that data really was sort of key for us to be able to show the value of what the QR code could do for us. So not only for us to know where our bottles had ended up, because obviously with that information we know where they've gone to, but obviously from a retail point of view, they could then see which stores had sold when, and how long it had taken for the repurchase, for example, if they were going to use their voucher again. So all this information was very valuable. It was coming out from just being able to line up, and QR Squared, yeah, were just amazing at being able to walk us through and help out with everything we needed.
Yeah, it sounds super intuitive actually. Um, and then that kind of leads me on to ask Rosa, like, t tell me about how the platform works and how you actually support, yeah, Andrew with kind of like launching this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with what we offer. So we sort of call ourselves a connected packaging platform that allows brands like Mallard Point and others to generate and manage their own GS1 digital link QR codes through our no-code interface. So we support these brands by offering loads of landing pages and templates that can be updated as often as they like, which is perfect for seasonal campaigns or sustainability messaging, regulatory updates, or even if they want to offer recipes or anything like that. And we also offer to brands multi-locale and multi-language options, which means that they just need the one QR code and they can have different information in different countries, whether that's translated or just different information altogether. And Andrew's touched on it a wee bit, but we offer analytics and traceability and consumer engagement tools. So we help to turn the packaging sort of into a digital touch point. And what we found is that when brands use the QR codes that are powered by GS1, the dwell time on their page is 7 times higher than just your bog standard QR code. So Mallard Point are a great example. They've used a bespoke page for each product. But using our technology, they only had to make one template. But if you scan their rosé, for example, you're taken to a page all about the rosé, or if you scan their vodka, you're taken to a page about their vodka. And we help Mallard Point figure out how to print a QR code on each label that's unique to them. So it's kind of like a fingerprint on each label. And we worked with the printer to ensure that there were no errors and they were capable of printing, which helped us enable Mallard Point to run their return scheme. So they're using a serialized QR code, but we also offer the option for brands to add best before dates or batch numbers to their QR codes too.
Amazing. So it sounds like there's a lot that the QR Squared platform can do. How,
Mhm.
in terms of like when you were working with Andrew, like how quickly does it take from like initial kind of like let's start thinking about what we want to do to actually getting it live into market, and were there any kind of challenges that you faced?
Yeah, so it didn't take too long. The first step was generating the QR codes and working with the printer to make sure they were capable of printing these QR codes to the proper GS1 standards. And then with Mallard Point, we worked closely with Andrew to sort of define the use case, which was highlighting their sustainability efforts and enabling the reuse scheme on this landing page. So then once those were sort of aligned, it took days or probably hours even to generate these digital link QR codes and connect them to the landing pages. And this was all possible because our platform is designed to be very agile and brand friendly. So there's no development work or software engineering needed from Andrew's side or from from me either, which is really good.
That sounds really nice because I know things like software development, it sounds quite scary. So having a platform that's super intuitive that someone can just log in and update as and when is really important. So Andrew, in terms of like the using the platform, like how easy is it for you? Also, were there any other challenges that you faced in terms of implementation that you needed to think about after kind of the initial launch?
So, Rosa touched on one there. So the labeling side of things. So from we're in a crossover bit at the minute where some of our spirits are still actually on the card side of things. So with wine, we're fairly vintage led. So it enabled us on the next run and any new spirits to implement this in. So we do have some cards still going out on whilst we finish off these labels rather than just bin labels for the sake of
Yeah.
rolling this out. So that there was this transition part. Um, uh, as Reza said, so getting it's new technology as you highlighted in your opening part beforehand in this transition part. So for printers to be able to do this and the one time because they're one time only scan QR codes etc on there, and they're obviously to individual landing pages. You know that the work we did, which was obviously easy to replicate from the template from behind the scenes on the product side of things, but obviously the printer needs to make sure they were doing that. But the upscale of that was that we can sort of almost batch, products going out, so retailers can see if they've got numbers of stores, from numbers to numbers, because we can scan that QR code without launching it, if that makes sense, and know that batch of rosé, for example, has gone to said store, and this batch has gone to B store, etc. And therefore we can then sort of really drill down into numbers. So I suppose the real other challenge was we'd obviously set up with a card, and everyone had seen that, and our marketing side of things had shown all that. We then had to go back and then inform our customers that in actual fact we've now changed to this great new technology. And so, was there a bit at the beginning? I think it would be fair enough to put your hands up that people were could have been a little bit confused, and so we put a card into say, and made sure that the call to action was, which is really important when you're putting any new information out for people to follow out there. So we really highlighted and went back and did a piece of work on that side of things, and so there was a small blip, I would say, in returns, or we got some bottles back, for example, without any cards in or without any scans, for example. So there was a noticeable sort of month or so when we first relaunched this part out with the new labels on there. But to say a piece of work was done on that, and we're pleased to say that our returns rate went back up to the sort of 61% of returns that we sort of are lucky enough to have with this system at the moment.
Amazing. It's interesting, but also I understand because it takes a lot of time for people to change, right? You need to educate people, but once they do, and if it's intuitive enough, they will definitely start using the QR code moving forward. And also super interesting. So, the way you described it, so each bottle has a unique serialized QR code on it. And actually, when you're scanning it in the supply chain, it can track it, but also doesn't almost like tick it off as a consumer scan QR code. That's super interesting, so that you've got the two benefits there of obviously the traceability within your supply chain, but then also the consumer information that you can gather about your actual consumers, where they're scanning, what they're doing with the products. That's really interesting. Rosa, do you have, like, in terms of like the challenges Andrew mentioned, obviously the consumer perception and moving from card to QR code, and also the supply chain stuff, is there any stuff that kind of QR Squared and Polytag supported with in helping overcome those challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had done serialized codes before with our previous work with Ocado and Polytag, but this was sort of a new process. So it was something that we hadn't done before, where it was more in the consumer's hands to fill in the form on the landing page and send it back. So there wasn't really a playbook to follow, I'd say. So one of our key challenges was ensuring that our platform could meet Andrew's specific needs while aligning with the GS1 UK standards, and making sure that the landing page was really informative for the consumers too. So we worked closely with Mallard Point to sort of create the right workflow from onboarding to the content delivery, and made sure that this process could scale for future uses. So it really was a collaborative effort, and I think it's paid off.
Amazing. So yeah, it sounds like there's a whole host of like different benefits that you've managed to unlock, Andrew. And probably the one thing that a lot of people on the call today are interested about is what kind of results are you seeing? What numbers are you seeing? Like, what are the return rates? Where are people scanning? That kind of stuff. Super interested to hear about that.
So I suppose the first thing to say is we use Royal Mail as our returns side of things. So this is a UK-wide, return system basically. Albeit we have desires to be able to roll this out further, and there are interesting discussions going on behind the scenes. But yeah, so from a UK-wide, I think if we bring up the scan location, you can sort of see a snapshot of one of our scans here for a month. And you will see, yeah, it's sort of concentrated in various areas. You will see some larger dots in certain places. So some of these can be larger retail outlets, for example, that we're doing. But yes, they come from all over. I suppose one other thing to highlight here is that you are given the option as a consumer to give your location. Obviously, you have to opt into that. You don't have to. Therefore, your domain, for example, browser can therefore come up with some things. And give that area. But yeah, we're seeing bottles coming back from consumers at a rate of about 61%. And we know this because we kept every single bottle, every single returns package, and obviously we have this data from Royal Mail, who obviously scan and return our bottles back to us. So we're very confident with our numbers of what we do have as far as these returns rates of bottles. Wine comes back quicker than spirits. I think that's pretty obvious for the rate of how that would be drunk, for example. So yeah, we see a lot more wine, and people do keep spirits and collections and things like that. So and our bottle is nice and unique. So but yeah, we now have nearly 20,000 bottles going round and round in circles. And we've got bottles now on 5th or 6th use going around. So yeah, we're super pleased with a system that basically we created 4 years ago, put into action about 2.5 years ago, I think, really, in fairly slow order, but we have yet to see someone sort of turn around to us and say, what a silly idea, for doing it. There isn't anything else really for reuse that is out there in alcohol. Our bottle being aluminium makes it an ideal vessel because it's unbreakable. The packaging is very limiting. We don't need lots of air sacs and everything else. The packaging it comes in protects the bottle on its way out, and then reverses and then becomes its returns packaging, and then at end of life is then recycled and made into compost that we reuse ourselves on the vineyard. So again, closing the loops and reusing where possible. But yeah, scans. That's what the QR code has enabled us to see. This is data of actual bottle returns. Here's the package that's come back. Came on the 17th of May onto us. Onto there. We data log everything ourselves as well, so we have an accurate record of everything that comes through when we scan them in. Obviously, we're releasing the QR code, the incentive back to people once that comes in as well. So yeah, it's super exciting to see all this data.
Amazing. And out of curiosity, like, how many times do you refill an aluminium bottle, or is it just infinite? Or
so we've got bottles, as I say, out there now in 5th fill on there. So what we do is we take a bottle out of returns. They go to a facility where they can X-ray them and see. So like most things that are glass, they have liners inside them. So we get to see obviously the liner inside an aluminium bottle and see how we're dealing with high acidity and we're dealing with high alcohol because we use wine and spirits. So yeah, we have an X-ray and a sample amount of bottles that get checked through.
amazing. I think it's a fantastic initiative.
Thank you.
and really the direction that we'd love to see other brands go in, right? Because reuse is such a great initiative, and we all need to be doing it a little bit more.
I believe you're absolutely correct.
Agreed.
And then my last question to you, Andrew, actually. So what's next? What's next in terms of Mallard Point, this initiative?
Well, there's a couple of things. We're still, I mean, we're a very small company, but we still have a desire to have full sparkling, traditional method style wines in our bottle, which we've been able to show we can do. But we need to overturn some legislation which is a bit outdated, some EU legislation which prevents full sparkling wine being in anything else other than heavy glass. So that we'd like to see happen, and yes, be able to roll this out further than the UK, and really get returns going through a system rather than, you know, Royal Mail we use because Royal Mail come past our door every single day, come past your door every single day. So from sustainability point of view, it's better than just giving a you know, any carrier you know, who are going to pick a route that suits them on that day, etc., which isn't perhaps quite as sustainable, let's say, as what Royal Mail are doing. That comes at a cost. And we have a challenge, obviously, with certain things from volume, as it were, where we are. So take something like Dry January, for example, where people can stop consuming, for example, for a period of time, and obviously that can have a knock-on effect for us as far as where we are. So we have to absorb that. So being able to get that returns process through an outlet or through a different medium, whether it's retailers taking back through their online deliveries, for example, of vehicles back to a central base, and then us collecting from central hubs, doing it that way would be probably the dream, but we'll wait and see.
Amazing. So it sounds like there's a lot to come, and Rosa, I feel like lots of new challenges for you to support Andrew with, which is exciting. And I think the other thing for me as well, like obviously reading your story and what you guys have done is just, you know, campaigning for it and raising awareness. You know, some of these big guys should also be looking at this, and you know, you guys managed to do it. Like, how could it be rolled out, you know, nationwide across different brands? And yeah, just really kind of piloting reuse and seeing this as a real life use case is really great. Amazing. So I think we've got one slide for QR squared, Rose. I'm going to hand over to you just to do a bit of an overview of the platform and what you guys do, and then we'll go on to some questions.
Absolutely. So there's a wee QR code there at the top, so you can scan that and take a peek at our website and sign up for an account if you're interested too. But yeah, a lot of this we've touched on. So we're a GS1 UK approved partner, and we offer brands the opportunity to generate QR codes through our intuitive platform. And these QR codes can be updated anytime. So you can print them and then change them further down the line if you want to make any seasonal adjustments, or if there's any changes you want to make, or you want to redirect to your website instead of, you know, a landing page. And we have customers of all sizes as well, so everyone is welcome on QR Squared, and we really hope that we simplify the journey and the transition over to these QR codes, and help increase product traceability as well.
Amazing. So let's go to the chat and see what questions that we've got from people. Kindly, Sophie from GS1 has answered a few of them. One of them that I wanted to pull out was a few people have asked about if a QR code has like batch or serial number, would it change every time it's printed? Rosa, you probably would know a bit more about that.
Yeah, so with the batch number, Mallard Point don't use this, but for our other use cases, yes. So you can encode the batch number or even the best before date into the GS1 digital link QR code as well. So yeah, every time that you're doing printing, it's usually printed on the line and it would change then. And then serialized, yeah, every single QR code is unique. There's no two that are the same. So it's basically the URL, and then it's got the GTIN, and then a unique serial number that we keep a log of in the back end. So yeah,
Amazing.
lots of different QR codes.
Dynamic QR codes is something that I've been working very closely on at the moment as well. And I think when I first heard about, oh my goodness, you're going to have to reprint a QR code for every instance, I was a bit like, that's not possible. But the technology is there, the printers
Definitely.
are there, they are able to do this at a certain speed as well. So definitely, if that's something that you want to look into as a brand, I would recommend getting in touch with whoever owns your printer, and they should be able to support you with that. So obviously the likes of Polytag can help you with the back end, but then the printers can help you with the actual physical printing of every instance of the QR code. Andrew, actually, on that, where you kind of print, were they able to do it dynamically quite easily, or was it a bit of a challenge? Did they have to kind of like rework things?
I think they were up for the challenge. They needed a small bit of hand holding at the beginning because it was something that they hadn't done right the first time. I think we were the first people to come to them with that because of the one time only side of things, and obviously they were doing batches of different products going through, and so obviously everyone had to. They were doing it in a run, and so they then had to change over to do that. But yeah, again, the support from Rosa and the rest of the Polytag QR Squared team, it was seamless, and it all worked extremely well. So you know, there was no point me being on the end of the phone trying to tell someone what to do. So.
I love that though, because I do feel like when we have these crazy ideas, everyone is up for the challenge, aren't they? They're like, we'll make it work. Let's figure out a way, which is great actually to have. Okay, I have another question in the chat around if QR Squared creates the QR code that points to a web address hosted by QR Squared, and then it obviously redirects to whatever the supplier wants to. If something happened to QR Squared, would that QR kind of go to nowhere?
No, that's a really good question. So what we can do, there's a few fail safes we have. So first off, we would always make sure that there's a backup for us. But secondly, you can add your own domain. So it doesn't have to be QR-squared in the URL. It can change to your domain. And then that means down the line, if anything were to happen, again, you have control of that URL and where it goes to. But in the meantime, we sort of help you manage the QR code side and the landing page. So it's just a really easy transition, but no, there's no dead end QR codes. I hate that sometimes you see those on products on the shelves, QR codes that go nowhere, but no, we make really good care, make sure that all the QR codes go somewhere.
Amazing. And that is the beauty of QR codes powered by GS1, right? So you see traditional QR codes on pack right now. I know I've had an example before where I scanned the QR code and it took me to just a generic Wikipedia page. Whereas if they had used QR codes powered by GS1, they could have constantly made sure that that was redirected to wherever they wanted it to be. And the beauty of QR codes is QR, by using the GS1 standards, the digital link standards, it drives interoperability. So let's say, yes, this stopped working here, you can just transfer over to somewhere else and use that.
Exactly.
Someone actually has asked a question, and I'm intrigued about this one. So you know how we talked about the QR codes being scanned like internally for like supply chain purposes versus by a consumer. How does that actually work?
Yeah, should I take that one, Andrew, to start?
Yeah.
So the consumer has a totally different journey to the supply chain. So the consumer goes on the landing page and then they fill in their email address so they can get the voucher back and their name. And that basically, when that form is submitted, then that all goes onto an Excel sheet with the serialized code. So it's a completely different journey. And I did see another question asking, how can you make sure that one person doesn't scan several on a shelf?
Yeah.
We've got that sort of fail-safe so we can see if there's any suspicious activity. But also, Andrew, I think I'm right in saying that on the shelf it's in the packaging anyway, so the QR code is kind of protected nearly by the packaging as well. Is that right?
We made the decision to put the QR code on the actual product, and obviously our product comes in a box because that's the returns packaging. So that was our sort of fail-safe in that respect. There is still a barcode on the actual box for scanning as normal, but the QR code is actually on the bottle, so that can be sort of duplicated as well.
Amazing. Yeah, I was wondering about that, but yeah, that makes complete sense if it's kind of locked away until the consumer gets it home and then they almost activate it and get all the information about the returns. And then just my last question, actually, maybe I can answer this one. Someone's asked if they don't want to change the QR code with every batch, how would that work? So obviously there's two different types of QR codes. You can have static QR codes that are printed offline that just encode the GTIN. They are still QR codes powered by GS1 and they will go beep at the till in 2027. But there are only a certain amount of use cases you can unlock with those. So things like consumer engagement, accessibility, maybe linking to recycling information. But to do the full kind of traceability stuff, the amazing stuff that Andrew's doing, you really need to be able to have those kind of like serialized QRs. That's what really unlocks those incredible benefits for Mallard Point.
And just to add, we do all sorts of QR codes as well, so we can do those simple ones and more complicated ones. So reach out to us.
Amazing. Well, I think we're coming to the end of time. I wanted to say a massive thank you to Andrew for kind of sharing the incredible work that Mallard Point have been doing around reuse. I think it's super, super interesting in the way the industry should be going. And thank you, Rosa, for telling us all about QR Squared and how you support Mallard Point in kind of getting this initiative off the ground. Any final words from you guys?
Please feel free to reach out if you want any more sort of examples or questions. Yeah, absolutely. To us at Mallard Point, I'll be glad to try and help out.
Amazing. And we're writing up a case study around all the work that Andrew's been doing, which will be published on our website in the next couple of weeks. So if you want a bit more detail, you can go there. And then just before we go, I'm just going to do a quick poll. So just following this webinar, we would love to know what next steps you guys are going to take in terms of implementing QR codes powered by GS1, whether that's just, finding more information, engaging your wider teams, understanding your current setup. Yeah, it'd be great if you could all just quickly pop which one you're going to look at. That would be amazing. Keep going. Everyone's thinking about it. They're like, what? Maybe I want to do like all five of them. Right. That's it. Well, thank you very much, everyone. You will also get a recording of this and the slides in the next kind of 24 hours as well. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks very much. Bye, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.